All right, let's dive into one of the world's most mysterious and, let's be honest, controversial organizations, the Freemasons. You see, depending on who you ask, they're either a noble brotherhood dedicated to making good men better, or a shadowy cabal secretly running the world. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at both sides of that coin.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Are we talking about a simple fraternity, a group focused on charity and self-improvement, or are they the puppet masters pulling the strings of a massive global conspiracy? This one question has fueled centuries of debate, suspicion, and some pretty wild stories.
And you can see that conflict right here. On the one hand, you have their official definition, a peculiar system of morality, veiled in allegory. Sounds pretty poetic, almost beautiful, right? But then, on the other hand, you get this incredibly unsettling mural from the Denver International Airport, which has become a landmark for conspiracy theorists. It's this exact contrast that makes the whole topic so fascinating.
To really get what's going on, we have to start with what the Freemasons say about themselves. So let's take a look at their official philosophy, what they actually teach their members, and what they present to the world.
This definition, from a really big name in Masonic scholarship, kind of gets to the core of it. They see themselves as engaging in a search after the divine truth. So right away, this frames the whole thing not as a social club with secret handshakes, but as a deeply philosophical, almost spiritual quest.
And if you really want to understand that quest, you absolutely have to know about one man, Albert Pike. He was, without a doubt, one of the most influential thinkers in the history of Freemasonry. His ideas are the key to understanding how they see themselves.
So, who was this guy? Well, Albert Pike was a true 19th century powerhouse. I mean, look at this resume. A pioneer, a soldier in 2 different wars, a brilliant lawyer, a poet, a scholar of ancient languages. He wasn't just some guy. For over 30 years, he was the head of the Scottish Rite, a major branch of Freemasonry, and he basically rewrote their entire philosophy from the ground up.
So what was Pike's big revolutionary idea? He called it the universal equilibrium, and he believed this was the ultimate secret that Masonry was trying to unlock. The basic idea is that the entire universe, everything, is a delicate balance of opposing forces. And if you can understand that balance, that's how you find harmony, truth, and what they call light. Pike starts at the very, very top, with the nature of God itself. He imagined a perfect balance within the divine, between, say, infinite wisdom and infinite power, or between absolute unbending justice and infinite mercy. For him, this divine balance is the blueprint for a moral and stable universe.
Okay, so from that divine blueprint, Pike then brings the idea down to our world. He saw forces like good and evil, or light and darkness, not as a simple battle where one has to wipe out the other, but as part of a grander equilibrium. In his view, once you grasp this, you see that everything, even the bad stuff, ultimately comes from a single, infinitely wise and loving source.
Then he brings it all the way down to a really practical level. A good government? That's a balance between state authority and individual freedom. But the final and most important step, the real work of a Mason, is to find that same equilibrium inside yourself. That balance between your higher spiritual side and your everyday material human side. So that's the inside story. Masons are focused on this complex internal balance. But while all that was going on inside the lodges, a completely different story was being told on the outside. And this external critique didn't see Masonry as a force for harmony at all, but as a serious threat to society. I mean, just listen to this quote, which was often cited by critics. It frames Freemasonry as being in an open war with traditional religion, literally celebrating the decay of the Catholic Church. That is a long way from being just a simple system of morality. Now, at the heart of this criticism is a concept called unsectarianism. Now, a Mason would tell you this just means promoting a universal brotherhood that welcomes people of all faiths. But critics see something way more sinister. These see it as a calculated plan to strip religion from public life, especially from schools, all while pretending to be neutral. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. The stated Masonic goal is to be a center of union for good people. The critical view? That the real goal is to destroy radically all religious influence in society. You can see how there's just no way to reconcile these two views. They're polar opposites. And it's this deep conflict, this war of ideas, that really sets the stage for what comes next. Because all the secrecy, all the strange symbols, and all the powerful members, Well, that became the perfect fuel for some of the biggest and most elaborate conspiracy theories ever created.
Which leads to the obvious question. How did we get here? How does a group that claims it's all about morality and self-improvement end up being called the parent organization of all modern secret societies? That's the leap we're about to take, and it's a big one.
So, according to the grand conspiracy narrative, it works like a pyramid with layers of control. At the bottom, you have your regular Freemasons. They're seen as the recruitment pool. Secretly controlling them is an inner core, the famous Illuminati. And controlling them, an ancient mysterious serpent cult. And the ultimate goal of this entire structure? The New World Order. Total global control. And this brings us back to seriously weird imagery like this gargoyle popping out of a suitcase at the Denver airport. For someone who believes the conspiracy, this isn't just some quirky statue. No way. It's a symbol of ancient, hidden forces literally emerging from the mundane, everyday world to exert their control from the shadows. And to pull off this global takeover, the theory claims the network has its tentacles everywhere in the real world. This alleged web of influence connects him to some of the most powerful and secretive groups you can think of, from college societies like Skull and Bones to major policy groups like the Council on Foreign Relations and the Bilderbergers, and even global banks.
And at the very, very top of this pyramid, if you follow the lore all the way, you don't find a group of people. According to this source, you find what they call the serpent race, some kind of ancient, non-human intelligence that is supposedly manipulating all of humanity, tricking us into fighting each other to maintain its hidden control.
Okay, so this grand conspiracy isn't just some vague idea of control. For some believers, it has a very specific, very literal, physical goal that's rooted in biblical prophecy, the actual rebuilding of the ancient city of Babylon. Now, this part is just fascinating, and it's all based on biblical interpretation. The argument is that the prophecies in the Bible about Babylon's total destruction have never actually literally come true. I mean, the Bible says its stones wouldn't be reused, but they were, to build at least 6 other cities. It says it would be destroyed suddenly, like Sodom and Gomorrah, but it just faded away over centuries. It says no one would ever live there again, but people have lived there pretty much continuously. So the thinking goes, for the prophecy to be fulfilled, Babylon has to first be rebuilt into a global center of power, then it can be destroyed for good, just like the Bible says.
And you might think, okay, this is just some abstract theological debate. But then, in the 1980s, Saddam Hussein actually spent over $1 billion rebuilding parts of ancient Babylon, and he had his own name stamped on the new bricks, just like the ancient kings did. For people who believe this theory, that wasn't just some dictator's ego trip, it was a terrifying step toward fulfilling a dark, prophetic timeline. So, what are we left with? 2 stories that just cannot both be true. One is a story of morality, symbolism, and philosophy. The other is a story of a cosmic conspiracy spanning millennia. And the final question we have to ask ourselves is, are these stories a map to a reality that's hidden from all of us, or are they just a mirror, reflecting our own deepest, darkest fears about power, secrecy, and who's really in control?